The Pauli effect. Wolfgang Pauli.
Pauli.
Wolfgang Pauli was a physicist in the early 20th century who was one of the top physicists in the world. Unfortunately, he died fairly young, but he had a friendship with Jung, and Jung actually studied his dreams. But Pauli was probably erroneously best known for the Pauli effect, which was that whenever he walked into a room with a bunch of computers going, like half the computers would die. Like he was said to have gotten off a train by some like electrical grid machine, and then it exploded. He literally, there was some kind of energy field around this guy that just wreaked havoc with technology. And it didn't just happen once or twice, it happened all the time. So that it even got a name, the Pauli effect. So he's not even known, unfortunately, poor man, not even known for how brilliant of a physicist he was, but for this phenomenon.
For frustration.
This synchronistic phenomenon that was part of his life story. And so he and Jung became good friends, and he was one of the physicists who disagreed with the general consensus that physicists have that the study of physics has nothing to do with spirituality. Most physicists who are hard scientists say, well, I do meditation and I believe in that, but I don't think there's...
Compartmentalized.
Well, they would say, I don't think that you can find your way to the divine through hard science. It's a completely different thing. But Pauli and a few other people really did believe in this kind of field theory of consciousness, and that there was something going on that we don't understand, but that physics could crack that code. And unfortunately, like I say, he died relatively young. He had a rare form of cancer, and one of the last synchronicities that he experienced had to do with the room number of his hospital room where he died was a number that was significant for him. I forget exactly what it was, but
my number's 801.
Anyway, the point being that when Jung used the word acausal, what he meant was acausal in the sense of linear reason and cause and effect in the way that it would need to function to do
supernatural causation
a physical experiment.
Right.
So supernatural, he had to really steer clear of a lot of this stuff. If you read his autobiography, which he instructed not to be published until after his death, he had many psychic experiences throughout his life. Very strange.
And he didn't want to release it to be discredited.
He didn't want to release it because he didn't want to be discredited as a scientist. His entire basis of his ego consciousness was in being a scientist, and even when he did art, he had to do it as a scientist observing himself doing it. So there was a bit of a split there. So that was one of the things that I...
He was a painter?
He painted pictures, and he did sculptures, and he also did architecture, and he did a lot of things. He created a kind of a magical space for himself on the shores of Lake Zurich, not at his home, but a bit of a distance away, where he had a property, and he built Ballingen, which was his kind of medieval castle, and you had to get the water from the well and build a fire to make food. It was, obviously he lived in like the late 19th and early 20th century. I think he died in 1960 or something. So he lived in a time that we would consider modern in terms of amenities, but he wanted to rough it in this space, and he filled it with his paintings and sculptures, and his artwork was very important to him, but he didn't want to think of himself as an artist because he felt that would ruin it. He would not be able to freely express himself if he thought of himself as an artist. And I'm sure it had to do with his critical voice, and also, again, with the expectation that art should be something. If you think of yourself as an artist, you should be able to make a living as an artist. And he didn't ever achieve that level of technical skill. It was something he admired and envied, but he was not very encouraging to people in his circle who wanted to think of themselves as artists. He thought that it was a mistake and that it was taking away from the healing potentials of the art to think of it as a profession. So as a result, he didn't really provide much of a roadmap for professional artists who were like myself, who were working with their dreams and the unconscious, because mostly what he did was, just offer warnings on what not to do. And your experience with synchronicities, my experience with synchronicities are proof that there are some things that people need to be warned about. That the imagination is very powerful, that synchronicities are very powerful. They can actually misdirect your energy and your psychological process into places that aren't as healthy. But the creative process in itself is essentially healing. And so one of the things that I discovered was that he had based a lot of his theories and ideas about art and artists on Kant and Schopenhauer and Nietzsche. And so the version of aesthetics that he was taught in his studies equated an appreciation of beauty with a form of dissociation. So he told a story based on a real life anecdote. It was an anecdote based on a real life story of an artist who happens upon the scene of a terrible carriage accident in which a child has been killed, and the blood of the child is on the snow because it's a winter scene, and the artist admires the beauty of the blood on the snow. And so he recognizes that for that artist, if he wanted to depict that scene, he or she would need to have a level of dissociation emotionally in order to depict it at all. And at the same time, he pathologized it, saying, well, this is an example of somebody who's separating themselves from their emotions, and therefore that's psychologically problematic. And I countered that with the argument based on the photograph that was taken of a child being stalked by a vulture in Somalia I think it was in the 70s. It was during the previous war in that area, and this South African photographer, who was the kind of person who would go into the conflicts in South Africa or different places in the world and take photos, photojournalist who was, telling the world, this is what's happening. He was very dedicated and idealistic guy, and he took this photograph of this starving child, crawling along the ground and being followed by a vulture. And the photograph was published, and as a result, in the Times, and as a result, there was this outpouring of support for people who were starving in that area. And so the overall, net results of him taking that picture were very positive for the people who were being affected.
Pretty sick though, taking the picture, huh?
Well, that's what people said. But he took the photograph and then he scared away the vulture.
Okay.
And he did not
Smart Gaia gives you $100 for meth.
Right. Right. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad. It's true that he also left the area immediately because he had to get on an airplane and fly somewhere else. It turns out the child actually did survive, but people excoriated him for not having done more.
Yeah.
Even though what he did actually probably saved way more lives. And he committed suicide, even though he'd won a Pulitzer.
Yeah.
So here's somebody who dissociated in the moment of witnessing this terrible, catastrophic moment in a human being's life. He dissociated enough to be able to take that photograph. He actually did take action. Yeah, right? He did take action in the moment to try and help the person. And then the results of his his art were very positive, but that dissociation did not protect him from the trauma, because if he hadn't experienced trauma, he wouldn't have killed himself. So this idea that the dissociation of the artist is some sort of protection for the consequences of being an artist is incorrect. My point is that a temporary dissociation is a trauma response. It actually is completely irrelevant to the creative process, except that at certain moments it comes into play in certain situations. But that a kind of wholesale dissociative disorder is not involved with me looking out at this beautiful landscape and going, oh, how beautiful that is. That doesn't separate me from my emotions. It may fill me with deep emotions of love and gratitude for having such a beautiful country. It may fill me with a sense of connectedness with nature, to look at nature and see how beautiful it is. Those aren't dissociations. So I argue against this idea that that an appreciation of beauty, which Jung tended to see as being enamored of appearances, is a form of dissociation. I think that, and I go with James Hillman on this, that it's only dissociative if you live inside of the kind of Western dualistic perception that separates the spirit from physical reality. Because if you live in a more animistic way of looking at things, then there is no separation between the physical world and our experience of it emotionally. And we can detach, but the experience of beauty isn't to me a form of detachment. It's actually a recognition of the emotional and spiritual power of the natural world.
But do rocks roll uphill?
Only when Sisyphus is at work. Shall we say? I mean, rocks can roll uphill, I suppose. I've never seen one do it, but I've seen somebody roll a rock uphill. Right?
Yeah. I mean the rock itself. Over.
I would say that if rocks rolled uphill, then we would probably have some kind of magnetic force involved. I mean, I believe that a lot of things happen that we don't understand, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't be explained.
I need to rephrase my question to non-metallic rocks. You're right. I got to be very specific.
In the ancient world, they used meteor-based, giant meteor-based magnets to cause statues of gods to float in the air. They knew how to do that, and it was magic.
It still is magic.
It was the divine, but it was also physical reality that we can now explain, And so, really, the question is, why do we think that anything that happens is separate from the totality? We see the patterns that we see primarily because those are the patterns that are meaningful to us, and we're evolved to find specific visual stimuli meaningful because they relate to our survival, our reproduction, or our identity, and at the same time we're also connected to the larger organism of the planet in ways that we're not fully conscious of. I think of human beings as more like cells in a body, microorganisms inside of a larger living system. We have a function, and we think we operate independently, but we're actually far more part of a larger system that we can't possibly comprehend.
Yeah, I agree.
In that sense, we can't really understand the ultimate purpose or meaning behind a lot of these synchronicities that we experience because we don't know the larger context, actually.
Let me explain my understanding of them as they progressed.
All right,
and
let's hear it.
they still could progress more because
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I was a pretty staunch atheist at the time. When I was 13, I was like, Catholicism's not true, and then I got lost in just art and skating and then cooking and then relationships and late 20s. I found out about atheism and I was like, oh, I'm an atheist. And I thought there was a group that I had, and I went to the Secular Humanist Association for a few weeks until they're like, they didn't like me, and I was like, I don't see anything binding us together except for like the frustration we have with the religious, and it was more, I gathered more hate there, and I was like, this isn't a good solution to this,
Right. Yeah.
and mockery, and I was like,
And
bad strategy.
Every little group has its own culture as well.
Well, that one I just didn't fit in. But I did label myself atheist. So when these synchronicities happened, that I thought, it's not just random. It's not random. Like the speakers crackling was just the first thing. Then there was a whole slew of them. And I mean, one after another, it made my hair stand up. Like you were referring to
Wolfgang Pauli?
Yes.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the last homeless person that I interviewed about the disassociation. And he's, traumatized from being in Iraq. He had to shoot a young child that was running at him with a bomb strapped to him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he told me that story. It was really hard not to
Who could possibly get over that?
He has not.
No, of course not.
Yeah. I wish him the best, and my first response was like, you had no choice. It was like,
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know it doesn't matter. I think the term is monist, where you only believe matter and energy exist, and there's no supernatural. There's nothing beyond this world.
Okay.
That's what I was like.
Yes.
Like a strict.
There's nothing beyond. Yes. That was the big debate between Freud and Jung.
Huh. Interesting. So as an atheist at the time, I was like, I thought I attributed the agency to a human agency.
Oh.
And since my father was whenever the Iraq War started, he was like,
was it Iraq?
No, the first one. There was two, huh? Oh God. USA, 250, we made it! Yay! Why so many wars?
Yes.
He's like, I might have to leave, and I can't tell you why. But I was like, oh. So I thought that the military was very interested in my father, and it seemed like he knew everything. I started seeing messages in the synchronicities, like
Yes.
Something that was not of the natural world. I woke up and all of my paintings in the gallery were turned upside down, and there was and then there was another incident later, whenever I changed my opinion of where this agency was from. So there were only two things that happened that weren't like synchronicities. It's not like seeing the levitating thing. It's possible to happen. It's just like the timing is your radio turning on. That's.
And I had a perfectly valid scientific explanation for it, but no way.
I don't know. Not to turn your radio on. I'm sorry.
That's all I got. All I got.
Yeah.
But also there was no way to test.
There's no way to test any of the synchronicities.
You can't do lab experiments.
You can't repeat it. It's definitely non-repeatable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of synchronicity.
But it doesn't mean that it's not real.
Right.
Just because it's non-repeatable.
Right. That's right.
We agree.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, there are people who have hallucinations, and so you can hallucinate a thing. But barring that, if you have anecdotal evidence that somebody had an experience and they're a reliable witness, then you have to say there's a high likelihood that actually that did happen.
Yeah. The question is always what caused it.
And that's where the acausal thing comes in, because what caused it? there you go, doing the Jim Carrey look again. Because acausal meaning that it's not part of the ordinary system of cause and effect
which would be
utilize in science,
it
has to be repeatable. It's acausal in the sense that it's non-repeatable.
Yeah.
Right. And
even more so.
And what caused it is, highly debatable because
Well, I debated with myself for 2 solid years. I drove all the way to Altoona from New Orleans, seeing all of these coincidences over and over and over again. You know, I'm driving, I turn the radio on. The radio was big, part of it.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, from the Cafe Lounge Car. Cafe is now temporarily closed for an employee meal break.
I woke up, the gallery, my paintings were turned upside down. I've never been a part of society because I don't have a car. And like everybody has a car, and you got to like they look at you like you're a loser if you don't have a car.
Well then, there you go.
Yes.
Synchronicities again. You know, let me tell you a story just very quickly related to synchronicities that come all in a bunch like that. My husband and I own a bookstore in Easton, Pennsylvania. And we had a panel discussion by several authors who write mysteries. And they all described the same phenomenon, which is as they would be writing the book, and it would sort of be like you're constructing this elaborate puzzle, right? A mystery. And at the point where they're nearing the end of the book, writing the book, and all the puzzle pieces are starting to fall together, always a whole bunch of synchronicities start happening that relate to the story, as if the universe is saying, oh yeah, you know, you should have a kid here, or you know, the color should be green, or you know, or your idea is right. You know, it's like the synchronicities were coming in response to the creative process of solving a puzzle.
Well, I'm getting goosebumps again.
There you go. You're totally covered with goosebumps. So your instinct that synchronicities are related to your creative work, I think is a valid one.
Well, I never viewed it as like I'm actually part of the cause of them.
Well, there's where you're making a mistake.
Yeah.
You know, there's another thing I should tell you.
It's how they would communicate.
That's a little bit paranoid, but
it's super paranoid.
but you know about poltergeists, right? A poltergeist is.
I was a Catholic.
Right. Well, those people who study poltergeists say that they're almost always associated with a young person who is present in the house or the area when the poltergeist activity happens. And Jung himself had poltergeist incidents in his home when he was present, and one of them was a knife that got broken with a loud explosion inside of a cabinet, and when it happened he felt a hot feeling in his stomach, and he knew that something was about to happen. Actually, this happened when he was having a conversation with Freud, where Freud was arguing that, you know, you can't bring the occult or any kind of metaphysics into psychology because that's not valid. And he basically was arguing with Freud that, you know, that these are experiences that are common to all human beings, so we have to study these as part of our psychology. And he kind of got upset, and then he felt this hot feeling in his stomach, and then this knife in the cabinet exploded, and he said, you know, watch out or it'll happen again, you know, like, or something like that. It was actually kind of a moment of triumph for him, because he felt that this synchronicity of this bizarre occurrence alongside his own emotional state was a causal, but because there's no direct cause and effect, but the synchronicity was meaningful.
Yeah.
It was meaningful because it was the environment coinciding in some bizarre way with his own inner world. That the synchronicities may not be consciously or even unconsciously caused by you, but if they're related to you, then their meaning is related to you. Their meaning is related to you because they reflect a pattern in your own psyche, and your psyche is not separate from the environment. It's not separate from other people. The collective unconscious is collective.
Yeah.
It is the mycelium layer of, the
forest.
field of consciousness that we're all a part of, and that actually produces the phenomenological world. So the phenomenological world is what we perceive as the phenomenological world is primarily a product of our form of a perception. If you get my drift.
Kind of. I don't know. I still think it would exist without us.
It wouldn't exist. It wouldn't exist without us, and we wouldn't exist without it.
Well, I definitely know that we wouldn't exist without it.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
you're talking about the material world.
Yes. Well, what in Hindu tradition is the veil of Maya, which is this phenomenological screen which manifests and represents, and I don't think is separate from the underlying forces that are going on, but it's like a tiny slice. Okay, so here's another example. We all can hear vibrations within a certain range. And if they're outside of that range, we can't hear them. We can see light waves within a certain range. If they're outside of that range,
Electromagnetic.
we can't see them.
Electromagnetic. The lights
Wavelengths.
just a little spectrum of it.
Yeah, there's different wavelengths, right? And we only perceive a tiny percentage of the wavelengths that exist.
Shrimp. There's a shrimp that has the best vision.
Right. Yeah, lucky that shrimp.
Yeah. Tripping all day long.
And actually, some people see more colors.
I'm partially colorblind.
And some
Red,
people,
green.
Yeah, it's Daltonism. Yeah.
Yeah, which really disappointed my father because I couldn't be a jet pilot.
That, so another synchronicity. My second husband had the same problem. He wanted to be a jet pilot because his dad was in the military, but he had red-green color blindness, so he couldn't. He never joined the military.
Yeah, it's sad.
And then he wanted to be an artist, but he couldn't do that either because he had color blindness. It
There's
didn't stop you though.
No, there's an artist with the same name I was born with, Robert Sutton, in Florida, who's completely colorblind.
Wow.
That's his stick, I
Shtick,
I guess I don't know, but like, he's like, I paint with color, but I can only see black and white.
That's hilarious.
With the same name as me.
That's funny.
It was weird, like a coincidence.
But the
of
point
magnitude.
is that we only perceive a tiny slice of the possible perceivable things in the universe, and that determines what we think the phenomenology of our world is. But it is partial. It is very partial.
Yeah.
And the things that we can't perceive, we don't know about because we can't perceive them with our senses. So again, another thing that is particular to the phenomenology of our incarnated existence is linear time. But experiments have shown that when people are being shown images and they have to make a choice between, they're given a prompt and they have to choose an image, and they're measuring their brain waves, they start making the decision before the picture appears. A split second before the picture appears, they've already decided which one they're going to pick. And it suggests that time itself is an illusion of consciousness, and that we're actually operating in a very different kind of reality than we think we are. The question is, how do we maintain our sanity in a world where our ideas about what's real are shifting so quickly? Because there's always been synchronicities, and people explain them with religion because that was how people figured out how to deal with.
This is complete circle right here. I want to start a cult.
Yeah. Well, people figured out that 99.9% of phenomena are predictable in a cause and effect universe, but there's a certain percentage of things that happen that can't be explained. And therefore, we explain them by saying, there's a man in the sky with a beard, or there's, a woman underground who spouts flame, or whatever it is, and that gives us something to hang on to, so that we don't lose our grip on reality, because we have to exist in that reality, despite the fact that it is a grand illusion. It's a grand illusion we need to manipulate in order to survive, and we have that that need to survive most of the time anyway. And so it really begs the question of like, are we creating our reality on the fly? And is it simply that we believe?
My partner believes that, and she blames me for all the shit that's happening. Seriously. She's like, nah. I only want to hear positive things out of your mouth. Like, it's really hard to do that right now.
Well, and that gets back to that thing we were talking about before we were recording, where there's different points of subjectivity that are overlapping. Mm-hmm. So it's true that we have a consensus reality that we have to operate inside of, and we can't control other people's subjectivities, and they are going to affect us, especially when they kind of gang up. I may decide, that love is the answer, and if we all could just care and love each other, then we would have a perfect ideal society. But I can't make other people do it. And if somebody comes at me with a hatchet, I'm gonna have some thinking to do, and I won't think about it. Yeah, the Matrix, exactly. But my point is that I can be in a reality where all these weird things are happening, and I can be like, okay, that's weird. Okay, that's weird. What does this mean? How does this symbolically or archetypally represent a moment for me in my inner world? And what meaning can I take from it? But the second I say, oh, this means I have to do this, or this means it has to be like that, and I start solidifying it, concretizing it, objectifying it into a way of thinking of things, then it all blows up.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that.
I've been there. Yes, you can't.
You can't do that. So that's my caveat. Recognize that there's these bleed throughs from dimensionally from a larger reality that we can't possibly comprehend. But that's exactly why we have to just take it with a ton of salt and say, all right, that's weird, and it'll make a great story, and maybe it gives me some hope or a warning. But I'm not going to now run my life on the basis of what I dreamed last night.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah.
I had all these weird, spooky things happen to me in the gallery, but I didn't believe in the spooky.
Yes, and that's often the kind of thing that happens to a person when they are coming face to face with their most powerful complexes, and the universe is demanding that something change, that there be a personal transformation. It often accompanies personal transformation.
Oh, there was, it definitely changed.
So, and I was telling you about my friend Harry Waldman's book, Off I Went, which it involves a relationship, and I may be getting this wrong because I haven't read every page of this graphic novel yet, but my impression is that it's the story of somebody who is in a relationship, and there's all these synchronistic things that happen that make him think this is the one for me, but except the only problem is that she doesn't think that, and it's catastrophe.
Yeah.
And at the end of the story, his cat gets a severe ailment, which is almost certain to be fatal, and the veterinarians are like, you should just get this cat put down. It's going to cost $5,000 to get the operation that the cat needs, and there's only a 5% chance that the cat will survive the operation and get better. And he doesn't want to lose his cat. It's like symbolic of the loss that he's experienced in terms of this relationship. But he also has had issues with money his whole life, and the idea of spending $5,000 for nothing is like not appealing to him. And so he has this moment of crisis, and spoiler alert, he decides to go ahead and have the operation done, and the cat survives. And this is the happy ending that he gets after all this other just horrifying stuff that he goes through. So, and this is somebody who's pretty, he's had some mental health issues himself, and so, he's really not handling things well throughout the book. But there's this moment of clarity where he makes a decision, and it's not the logical decision, it's based on a gut feeling. And then when it turns out okay, it's like this redemptive moment for him. So,
I hope my cat survives.
do you have a cat?
It's figurative.
I thought that was an interesting comparison with the experience you're describing, because the problem is if you align yourself to the synchronistic world, then you're misaligning yourself with that. With the area of the field that we need to operate inside of, where other people's subjectivities are also count. Because generally speaking, when we experience a synchronicity, it's a lone experience. Sometimes there are some exceptions to that. Sometimes more than one people witness a thing, but even so, the person it's meaningful for is usually just one person. An example of a synchronicity like that. See if I can remember this story correctly. A man is on a journey and he needs to be able to report back to his superior or collaborator. It's I think a journalist, and he has to call this person, and at a certain time he makes the phone call, but he calls the wrong number. And somebody picks up in a department store at a desk in a department store and says hello, and he says, "Oh, I'm calling for so and so," and the person in the department store is just running the credit card of the customer standing in front of him, and it's the guy he's calling for.
Spooky.
Yeah. And so that's an example of a synchronicity, because it's not just a coincidence, it's a meaningful coincidence.
Yeah. After all of that, I turn on the radio, Coldplay turned on, Lights Will Guide You Home. This was before daylight running lights. All the lights on the other side of the highway turned on whenever that line on the song, I was going,
God, you're trying to drive me crazy, and I don't even believe in you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was like, how big are they? How did they get so many people on the highway at the same time? And then, by the very line, I was like, this isn't live radio. They're broadcasting in. This is a radio that was replaced. I figured out how humans could possibly do this. And for two, I knocked on my.
Oh no!
I walked out my dad.
See, that's literalization.
Well, I knocked on my dad's door, who I had not had a good relationship with. And I was like, I was getting all these messages that I would get the answer from him. That this was top secret, that they can't just come out and say, "Hi, we've been studying you and we'd like you to work for us."
Yes.
Because I really wanted a job.
Speaking of Jim Carrey, you're living in the
Yes.
the box being observed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was very uncomfortable at first, but I got used to it. Constantly thinking that I was being watched for 2 years. I thought an agency that I didn't know has been watching me pretty much my whole life. I knocked on my door and I looked at my dad and I was expecting answers, and he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then my stepmother, "I don't know what you're talking about," and my step nephew was there, and I thought it was like, oh, this is so top secret that even these people who knew what was going on couldn't be open. This is how secret it is. This is how they remain invisible.
Right.
And I pretended to be crazy and fell over until the ambulance came, and I spent a week in the mental ward.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
I broke out of it.
Yeah.
I broke out of the mental ward. I tackled the. It's a long story.
You should be the one being interviewed here.
I might be manipulative. I might be doing this to get interviewed. It's hard to. I don't know we think we know ourselves, but we know most of ourselves. But there's the shadow or thing we don't know.
Sure. Well, we only know what we know. We don't know the things we don't know, and that there's a lot more of them. Think about this: the chance that the universe in which we are sitting on this train, traveling down these tracks, looking at this scenery, actually could even exist is so improbable that we are in a synchronicity right now.
I think it's. See, 801 is more than 8 is actually infinity. 0 is 0, 1 is 1. 0 is impossible. So it's I don't find it. I find it. It would be weird if there was zero. If there was nothing. If this, I'm getting sidetracked with 801.
Just mathematically, though, you have to admit it's highly improbable that any of this could even happen.
I think we are extremely unlikely.
Yeah.
But
Well, have you heard of the Lovelock and Margulis, the Gaia hypothesis? Since the 70s, the
what?
Gaia hypothesis.
Wait, what's your name?
Gaia.
Okay.
It's not about me though.
Okay.
But I chose the name Gaia. It's not my birth name. The Gaia hypothesis is that the Earth is a self-regulating system. It's not an accident that there's life on Earth. It is that Earth is alive, and that's why we have the atmosphere and the oceans and the plant life and everything like that. If it were simply on the basis of mathematical principles of stochastic possibilities, life on Earth would never have evolved. It could certainly never be maintained the way it is. I'm not advocating that we should just let planet Earth handle it, because we don't have any responsibility for what happens. But I will say that miracles are happening all the time.
I'm counting on it.
Like
that's
we just have to start praying.
Well, that's where I'm totally going the miracle route, because it's like, I'm not joking.
No, I'm with you. I'm right with you, but also we participate in the miraculousness of this reality. We are agents in it, and our agency matters. So if
I agree,
I'm not a fan of human exceptionalism. I don't think that we're somehow of a different quality than other animals. We have certain qualities that we've developed to an extreme, and that has its pros and cons. It has its shadow side. Jung thought that we existed to be the conscience of the divine, which makes some sense. But I also don't think
the conscience, like right and wrong.
Yes, yes. And I don't think we're the only animal with a conscience.
No.
I mean, dogs are much nicer. We don't always even know why we act the way we do, or think the things that we think, or feel the things that we feel. But we often just react in terms of these cultural complexes, which have, a tendency to produce scapegoating, an outgroup, all kinds of various things that cultural complexes can do, and we see it in
scapegoating, a nasty.
We see it
personality
in play
disorder
right now
trait.
in the Middle East, big time, but also in this country. But there is a case for the idea that if we could all have the same collective hallucination at once, that it would happen. Love and joy, and it is possible that such a thing could happen. It's highly unlikely, but so is everything else.
Yeah, well, that's
certainly we've been having a collective hallucination of Armageddon for at least 1,000 years, and it's not going well.
No,
I don't want that.
No, it's increasing. Like
we're
the speed.
We're creating what we imagine. I mean, that is the sad part of it, is that we do have agency, but the agency of the individual is tiny compared to the agency of the group, and yet every change, for good or ill, starts with one person or small group that has a vision that catches on. And that changes the course of history. So what's our vision that's going to change the course of history? What kind of synchronicities do we need to experience in order to believe that we can be a different kind of human than what history tells us we are? The human nature that we talk about isn't the nature that we evolved with when we were hunters and gatherers living in harmony with nature.
Yeah, it's software.
Software, not hardware. So how do we swap out the software for something that doesn't bring about the
You said
end of
collective
the human race?
hallucination. I've considered like if everyone just takes a giant chunk of acid all at the same time, we would get there. Because
We're sort of doing that. I mean, cannabis is starting to become legal almost in almost every state.
It's not enough.
Well, you know, microdosing. It's microdosing.
No,
It
I'm
changes
talking about
consciousness.
cannabis.
Cannabis, sure.
That's why I love it. So,
I think that that my feeling right now, at least at this moment in my life, and maybe it has to do with my personal trajectory because I've spent years studying and working to get to this point, and now I'm at this kind of suspended moment. You know, I'm on a train. I'm a doctor. I have infinite futures in front of me that I have to choose what to do about, and I feel like I have stopped thinking in terms of the typical ambition principle that I was taught. I was never good at being ambitious. What I am good at is sometimes recognizing this is the moment to act and then acting accordingly, and something magical happens. That I know how to do. I do not know how to impose my will on the world and make something happen for my benefit. And I think the reason is because I'm not a sociopath. And so therefore I can only act
That's
in
been
the
my
greater
explanation
good.
of my poverty so
Yes.
far. It's like,
I can only act in the greater good. If I'm not doing that, I don't believe in it, I can't carry it through, and I give up because I don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with it, and it feels alien to my identity. And so therefore, I think the more people who come into alignment with themselves, with their authenticity, the more that the solutions will naturally happen out of themselves. I think the biggest lie that we've been taught in our top-down, techno-religio-fascist universe is that if people aren't being told what to do and forced to do the right thing, they won't do the right thing. When in fact, that's not the way to make the right thing happen. The way to make the right thing happen is to build safety, trust, and love, and then people naturally do the right thing.
Yeah.
And they don't even necessarily know what it is. They just do it.
yeah.
Like Harry with his cat. The experts were telling him, don't try to save this cat. But he went and saved his cat. He knew it would work. And I'm not judging anyone, including myself, who has ever said, I'm going to have to let go of this animal now. Sometimes you know that nothing's going to work. You know that this beloved creature is leaving you, and you let them go. But he knew in his heart that this companion wasn't going to abandon him. And it was about the connection between him and the animal and what that meant in that moment in his life. And so I think we've lost trust in ourselves, and it's been replaced by trust in authority, and that authority is not living up to our trust in it. Clearly.
Yes.
Clearly. So nobody disagrees on that point.
What was it? No more wars? Trump was not going to send them?
So if authority isn't the answer, then inner moral authority is the answer. But it never happens in isolation. It only happens in the collective. It only happens in relation. The indigenous people of this continent, for sure, had a very strong principle of relationality as their way of life. Relationality wasn't just a way of living, it was what life is.
Yeah. They did have an advantage of the less advanced technology. It connected them more to the Earth systems.
Right, but there's certainly indigenous people today who are making use of technology, but it's not destroying their relationships. And when it does, then that's a pathology, because the relationships have to come before the technology. But the way that technology is being structured now, it's to take place of the relationship or to compensate for the lack
Oh
of
my
it.
God! When the AI started first coming, one in a feed of mine, it was this AI generated image being like, "I will be your boyfriend. I will be your girlfriend." And I was like, "Oh, we are
I
doomed."
mean, that should not even be allowed.
Oh my God!
There is no way people should be encouraged to have those kind of relationships, because it's a form of abuse by the technocracy.
Oh, sure. I agree. I mean, it's funny
People are so
talk.
vulnerable.
So for 2 years, it was a massive amount of synchronicities, like undeniable. There's something, there's an agency here. I attributed it to humans
Right.
for 2 years, and I was like, after 2 years, I was like, well, what's the fucking point?
Yeah.
Like, why did they say hello? And
It would have cost them $50 million to do what they did.
it made me feel really important. I'm not joking.
Oh, bad.
Yeah. Oh, I felt very important. I still do, kind of. I still think that I'm, I've had.
Maybe you just have a guardian angel.
My mom would claim that it's all her prayers, and that's the reason I'm alive. But I was born on December 26th.
That's not inflated. It was me, honey. It was me.
No, it was. It's called collective narcissism. It wasn't me. It was God in the church.
God in the church.
Yeah.
But I was able to channel that to you as
Yeah,
your personal intercessory mom.
Collective. Is it collective narcissism or it is? There's a.
I haven't heard that term, but it sounds good.
Oh, there's. Whenever I was researching it, I was like, I knew about everyone knows about grandiose narcissism, but the vulnerable narcissism. Are you familiar with that? I was like, oh,
that makes total sense.
yeah.
Well, and speaking of which, this idea that you're talking about, well, what woman would want to be with me because I'm living in a van? And I think
And
that
poor. It wasn't like
and poor and all that stuff. But
I guess that's the
if
same
it
thing.
was switched gender-wise, a woman wouldn't say what man would want to be with me because I'm poor or because I'm living in a car. The fact is that we've taken the hero archetype and we've put it onto the masculine, and we've taken the victim archetype and we put it onto the feminine, and so it's okay for the woman to be the victim, but the man has to be the hero. And the fact is, we have both of those inside of us. Sometimes I'm the hero, sometimes I'm the victim. Sometimes I identify as one, sometimes as the other. Sometimes I get beyond hero and victim, and I recognize that there's something happening at it is different than sexual preference anyway.
Right.
Once again, open and
Gender's the same
Relations.
as race. To me, it's not true.
It's a construct.
social construct.
It's a social construct.
But it's promoted as being like an absolute, like a real thing.
Absolutely promoted as being absolute, and doesn't align with any of the science.
No, all you gotta do is look at bonobos, right? And be like, that.
Well, and also at chromosomes and
oh, right. I mean, sex isn't
hormones and
as clear cut
all
as it.
that stuff. I mean, it's definitely.
If your male son wants to dress in a dress and go to school, out, I have no issue with that. But I do have an issue with hormone therapy and sexual reassignment below a certain age.
I think that what it comes down to is you can have any opinion you want for yourself, but you can't have an opinion for somebody else.
Well, but then you get to the point of statutory issues, because I'm talking like an adult. I don't care if you chop your arms off if that's what you want. I mean, fucking chop your arms off.
Well, you know what is what people don't understand about the issue of sexual assignment, not sexual
Gender
reassignment, not gender reassignment surgery. What they're actually talking about is gender affirmation surgeries. There are very few performed on people under the age of 18, and you know what they are? Almost all of them are
Intersex.
no.
What?
That's the tiny minority of them.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all of them are breast reductions for boys who don't want to look so feminine.
Huh.
That's actually what they're doing. That's the only one that they're really doing. Is like, 16-year-old with man boobs doesn't think they look good, and so they get.
I'm pretty much opposed to like most plastic surgeries too. I feel like they should be free. I mean, not free to do, but like they creep me out too much. Except for like nip tucks. Like if you have like a large flap of skin, like I'm like okay, yeah. But like if you don't like your nose.
As far as I'm concerned, I think people should be permitted to do what they want to their own bodies.
Absolutely.
But I would always support a person to, in the first place, just accept themselves the way they are if they possibly can. That is clearly the most healthy thing. And yet, there are situations in which, there's a level of urgency there, and it may be that the surgery itself is barking up the wrong tree, and it doesn't end up solving the problem, and that I'm sure that happens.
Breast reduction for kids, interesting. You know that.
Well, I'm an advocate. I'm a trans rights advocate. I have a trans adopted daughter, and so I take a deep interest in it because I'm trying to help her. I really love her and I care about her and I want her to be okay.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where her existence is being criminalized. I mean, literally, it was announced that if you believe in these LGBTQ the agenda, you're a terrorist. I am a terrorist according to Donald Trump.
Yeah, me too. I don't like fascists.
So I think that most of the objections that people raise are related to that stuff are actually based on misinformation that's being spread by the right, and that in fact parents and doctors are almost if not universally close to it, trying to make the right decision for the on behalf of the child, to give them power over their own lives and to help them to be okay. And there's the idea that there's these things happening is actually there's no evidence for it. It's actually not being done. So that's the problem.
They're not eating the cats? They're not eating the dogs?
No, and they're not chopping off little kids' penises when they come to school. They're not.
It's a great scare tactic. For sure.
It is there to produce fear, and it is there to manipulate people into hating and fearing a minority that they don't understand, because that's a great way to get
good people to do bad things.
Right, and to get political traction and to confuse people. I mean, this is the other thing about it, that this kind of tactic, it's not even that persecuting trans people is their goal. It's just a means to an end. If you can get people upset on both sides and fighting this fight and trying to deal with that, then you're not going to notice that they're stealing everybody blind. They're literally stealing all of the money and all of the resources, and they're running these crazy wars, and they're doing all this stuff, and people are just struggling to survive and try and maintain in a society where they want us to be at each other's throats. That suits them just fine.
Yeah, sure.
So that's the other part of it that frustrates me. It's like, why are we even talking about this? It was never a problem. Trans people using the bathroom was never a problem. And it's still not a problem. Ask any police officer in any city or town in this country, is there a problem with men dressing as women and sneaking into the bathroom to rape women? It's like, they don't need to dress as a woman to do that.
Yeah. It doesn't even logically
the problem
make sense.
is in trans people, it's rapists.
Yeah.
And they're trying to conflate the two,
demonize it,
and there's no evidence for that. So then it puts all this attention on, well, should this person, it's like, the same people who are coming out against gender affirmation surgery by trans people are like getting surgeries all over themselves.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
They are getting gender affirmation surgery.
Oh, I saw a joke about
Themselves.
Elon Musk and his he has like
And all these women with Mar-a-Lago face.
A Mar-a-Lago face.
Yeah.
Oh, it creeps me out.
I know. I would, if my dear daughter wanted to get that stuff done to her face, like the lips and stuff like that, I'd be like, honey, you have such beautiful lips. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
Yeah, I don't
You're so beautiful the way you are.
My father wanted a macho man, and I was not. So that's along the same lines of, I grew my hair long. I had earrings. I listened to The Cure. I was just not like.
We're going to get to the rest stop someday.
The best, yes.
Best stuff.
Best stuff. So I for 2 years I kept seeing synchronicities, and then I noticed a pattern where there would be a ton of them, because I was like, is this all in my head? Am I crazy? There would be a ton of them, and then there would be none for extended periods of time, and then a ton of them, and then none. And I'm like, okay, this is like on top of that, saying, hey, this isn't random, this isn't you. But it wasn't until I was painting in Seattle. I was doing a house portrait, and I had the girlfriend in Los Angeles, or Newport Beach, who was a Christian, and I told her about these things, and she's like, it's the devil, duh. The devil's trying to jack you. She said that over and over again. The devil's
trying to jack you.
Yeah, the devil is trying to jack you. The devil is trying to jack you. And I was like, I don't think it's the devil. I think it's, I don't know who they are, but it's like, it doesn't make sense. And I was telling her the synchronicities as they were happening on the phone. And in the middle of it, while I was painting, I was telling her, I was like, yeah, I just wrote this the other night. Oh, look, there's that. I was like, and I just said this and that. And then I realized at a certain point, I was like, I didn't say anything or write anything or do anything for this synchronicity, these several synchronicities to be happen. It was just in my head.
The important message that's being brought to you by the universe through your interconnectedness with it. The importance is the connections and the relations that it's indicating that you are part of something bigger than yourself. And
well, I know that, and that's why that's part of the reason that I like the call to Khnum, because it's not me.
I don't know what the call to Khnum means.
Khnum was one of the first Egyptian gods. He had a ram's head, sometimes an alligator or crocodile, and then a human body. And he was a potter. He sits at a potter's wheel with clay.
So he's an artist.
Definitely. And he creates babies on his potter's wheel, and then he puts the babies into the womb of the females, and he also puts the ka into the babies, which is the soul.
Nice. Okay.
And his main responsibility was flooding the Nile.
Okay.
And when he would flood the Nile, he would bring clay minerals to the lower Nile and silt. Silt made the land fertile so they could eat.
Fabulous arrangement.
And clay was super important at the time, even for preserving, organs, and that's what, He also protected Ra. When Ra would go set in the west on his boat to travel through the underworld, Khnum would sit at the front of the boat and protect Ra. But he wasn't Ra, the creator god or whatnot. But he was a creator. He created like humans.
I love that image of the flooding of the Nile as related to your experience of there being periods of time when there were all these synchronicities, and then for a while there were none. Because the flooding of the Nile, bringing all that water and nutrients up, that's a periodic event.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a periodic event. And I'll tell you a story about Jung from his autobiography, Memory Streams, Reflections. When he was probably around 30, 33, somewhere between 30 and 33 years old. I think he was
How
closer
old
to
was he when
30.
he died?
Oh, he was in his 89 when he died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this was in the very early 20th century, just not long before the start of World War I. And he started having visions. He had a vision of the rivers throughout Europe running with blood. And he had a vision of ice coming down from the north and covering Europe. And he thought he was losing his mind. He was really worried for his sanity. And he engaged in what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, where he let himself drop into the collective layer and recorded the visions that he had in that space. And that was the basis for his book, The Red Book. But he was still very worried about his sanity because he kept having these bizarre synchronicities, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then he had a dream that was very significant to him. And part of the dream, he was on a ship going back from Scotland to Europe, and I forget the exact details of the dream now, but the point is that sometime not long after that, he went to Scotland and to give a lecture, and World War I broke out. And as a result, he had to immediately get on a ship and return to Europe and take a train to his home country because all of the borders were about to be closed by military action. Mm-hmm. And because of the content of the dream and the way that it related to the events that were happening in life, he realized that what had happened was that he was having precognitive visions and dreams. And so he realized at that moment for himself that he wasn't going crazy, he was just experiencing these synchronicities because information from a very profound event was bleeding into the normal world from the collective layer, and he was a person who was sensitive enough to receive that information.
Yes.
And so he stopped worrying about his own sanity, and he started making a point of recording and elaborating what he was experiencing, because he understood that he had the privilege of getting special information about the future, and that helped him to make sense of his experience.
Do you believe in free will?
Yeah, absolutely. But I believe that free will is only possible in relation to the collective, just as authenticity is only possible in relation to the collective. In other words, I'm not being the most authentic when I'm like separating myself from other people and from nature and trying to be different and something special. I'm the most authentic when I'm the most related. And my will is the most free when I have the best possible understanding of the consequences of my actions by being related to others and to my collective.
Yeah, I understand that.
So I know it's a paradox, but
it is a
holding the
paradox, though,
tension
isn't
of
it?
the paradox
It
is
just
what-
doesn't make sense. It's like, how can free
It's
will
what
exist?
consciousness is
How-
all about.
Yeah.
What's interesting about cultural complexes is that it's typically a relationship between a hegemony of a larger group and a smaller outgroup, but nonetheless, on both sides of the cultural complex, they believe themselves to be the victim. In other words, when you have a group that's persecuting somebody, just like when you have if there's an abusive relationship between individuals, an abuser will always think of themselves as the victim even while they're abusing somebody else.
Yeah.
So that's,
They took our jobs.
or I was in an abusive relationship one time with a guy, and he hit me, and I was trying to get away, and my friends came to help me get my stuff, and he told me I was a thug because I brought my friends to get my things out of his apartment.
Yeah.
I brought my thugs in to gang up on him, and he treated me like I was the abuser while he was abusing me, and that is the projection of a complex, right? So that's a personal complex about abuse that he had based on his own experience of being abused, but it was not a reflection of who I am, right? And of course, I saw myself as the victim, but I at least had some justification for that because I was actually being harmed, you know. But cultural complexes set us up to preemptively abuse in order to avoid the consequences of our prior abuse of the other. But yeah, so
It's very common with autists. That's what I call them because I don't think it's a disorder.
right, yeah,
Having a non-binary.
actually, that's right.
I'm more robot. But like,
Well, it is true that people who are trans or non-binary are more likely to be on the autism spectrum. I think that's interesting because autism itself, or being on the spectrum, it's again like most categories of mental difference that we categorize. We're going by symptoms rather than, causes, because we don't understand or know anything about the causes.
it's genetic.
But or it could be triggered by
Epigenetic.
trauma. It could be epigenetic.
Well, I think trauma can induce like some autistic traits, but that's different. Because I have both too. I have autism and the personality disorder from trauma.
Well, and McGilchrist believed that a lot of psychological problems were actually caused by problematic lateralization between the two halves of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a sense, when we say, well, oh, this person is, has this kind of behavior or that kind of behavior or this kind of trait or that kind of a trait, and so we're going to put them on the autism spectrum. What we're really talking about is psychic dynamics that could have any number of different causes. So we don't actually have a clear sense of why it would be, or what kind of autism would be associated with what kind of,
I've heard about one thing that's
gender
that
difference.
kind of is outside of that, and it has to do with mirror neurons.
Oh, interesting.
So you're familiar with mirror neurons?
I would like to know more about it.
They're found in the prefrontal cortex, and they're hardwired into typical people's brains. And their job is to, what they sound like, mirror, because mirroring is an important part of like connecting with another person. I smile, you smile. You frown, I frown.
Yes.
Those are.
Yes. So you're talking about something that's developmentally important because the parent, when the parent mirrors the child, then they develop the ability to see themselves. Yes.
And I also think that personality disorder is very common in autism, or with autists, because you're likely to have an autistic parent, and they're less attuned to mirroring, which causes trauma in the child, and insecure attachment, and if that's not dealt with, maladaptation happens, and that's what personality disorder is.
Right.
Personality disorder is trying to deal with the
and there's many different kinds of deficits that can occur, and developmentally in different ways and then they interface with an individual who may have different proclivities. So, for example, I might have some autism characteristics that are the result of the interaction between my specific, person and the fact that my mom couldn't mirror or take care of me when I was an infant because she was really sick and she almost died after giving birth to my younger sister. And so I was sent away to my grandmother, which was wonderful because she mirrored me, and when my dad was around, he mirrored me. So I had enough mirroring to grow up okay, but when it comes to certain specific things, I shut down because there was a primary relationship that wasn't fulfilled.
Yeah.
And so certain developmental marks had to be compensated for in other ways. Those developmental landmarks still happen, but they happen with a difference. And that difference may have affected my development and made a difference in my level of confidence, or in this or that or the other thing. Not to go into the details, but the interesting thing is one of the presentations I saw at the conference I was just at was about. It was very detailed and technical, and I will have to get in touch with the author because I want to be able to read it again and sort of absorb it more completely. And he's going through these slides with lots of words on them and explaining, and I got the gist of it. But the point is that he was his research as a psychologist was and therapist was in what kind of specific processes of consciousness are involved with opening up the pathways for the progress to continue where somebody's been arrested developmentally by trauma, like lack of mirroring, any of those points in very early development where people can get stuck. It was actually a really wonderful presentation, because what he was essentially saying is, if under the right conditions and with the help of a professional, a person can actually restart those processes and complete those things at any point in their life.
Yeah.
And that's amazing, because a lot
I would
of what
say
we're
that it's
told,
probably easier when you're young and
of
you're,
course,
Yeah.
of course, and there's going to be certain deficits or damage that may never fully heal. Just the same way that
The narcissistic flavor of personality disorder is the most difficult one.
Oh, is it?
Because all of the other ones, they see the pain or the difficulties. But with narcissism, their fantasies are so strong. Like Donald Trump, his crowd is always going to be the biggest, no matter how many pictures you show him.
Right.
That it's not.
Right.
It won't go in.
Do you think he experiences synchronicities?
I do. I do. I mean,
He certainly had an extraordinary life path.
Yeah.
One man's synchronicity could be another man's catastrophe.
So let me. For sure.
Pardon me.
Yeah.
Getting a little bit.
So a couple years went by, and I was still like, "What's the point?" Okay, so no longer was I asking the question of. It was a relief, because as a human agency, it would be possible for me to discover this by by accident or whatnot. But if it's supernatural, then it's like I kind of like. I was like, I don't have to worry about trying to figure out what this is. I'm just. It's there's no power that I have.
Have you ever read Binky Brown and the Virgin Mary?
I have not. No.
It's a comic book.
Yeah,
it's fabulous.
Yeah.
Becomes obsessed with penis rays that he thinks can come out of any part of your body that's maybe even just shaped like a penis, like all of his fingers. And he was afraid that the rays were going to intersect with some sacred object like the Virgin Mary or his mom or anybody who might be. And he really, it's a graphic novel by a person who was mentally ill, but also an amazing artist and a fabulous metaphor for what absolutism does to the innocent child sexuality. And anyway, I highly recommend Binky Brown and the Virgin Mary.
Binky Brown and the Virgin Mary.
Again, my friend Harry, who I was talking about before, had a copy of it. It's impossible to get a copy anymore, but you can.
I still feel like there was agency behind these things. Like there was, what I mean by agency is like a consciousness.
Right. Yes. So
I heard
you're,
these
but
terms.
you're proposing a collective consciousness.
Yes.
Okay.
Like
that's called culture.
No. After you're dead.
After you're dead, you're still conscious?
Yes, I believe. So I'll just explain what I so as life forms, whenever we become aware of ourselves, which doesn't happen until you individuate, which is like 1 or 2 years old, right? That you actually realize that you're.
Individuation is different. That's
whenever you realize you're separate, and this is what I'm talking about. You understand yourself as a
ego consciousness. It's called ego consciousness. I am.
Sure.
Ego.
Yeah.
Ego means I am
Ah.
in Latin.
I am.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So consciousness essentially means I see I have perception. I am aware. That's consciousness.
Yeah.
And then ego consciousness says I have perception. I am aware that I am, as opposed to you or that train or the cloud. Or
Okay, I wouldn't say ego consciousness then. I would just say
Okay.
regular consciousness.
okay. So capable of perceiving and sensing.
Right.
Okay.
All of those things, after we cease to exist,
Okay.
join a collective. Okay.
Okay.
And at that point, you're everyone's naked. So like we have these assumptions, and they're just guesses of what is real, what is not real, our place in the universe or whatnot. But we don't know. We're limited, right? With some of us, like with disorders like personality disorders, we're not even aware of who we are. Like Trump doesn't know he's insecure.
Right. Because he's so sure of everything.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, some people with the personality disorder do feel it on a very his unconscious knows. His ego consciousness doesn't know. But anyway, so the ego consciousness would be like the I, right? This is like, what are you? You're the I. You are more than that. And whenever you die, you see the more than that.
We don't live in a world of absolute good or absolute evil, do we? I mean, there's an ebb and a flow. You know, Gandhi said something really wonderful. He said, what you do is not very important, but it is very important that you do it. And that was his approach to activism. You know, this is not about the individual and the individual being important. It's about the group coming together, and that's when you have power.
Yeah. I don't know if the cult of canoe will ever catch on.
This is your cult? The canoe?
Yeah, cult of canoe. I bought the domain. Nobody had it. So there was an original cult of canoe in Egypt that worshipped.
What you're saying is cult of canoe.
Cult, yes. Yeah. Thunderbird. There's a different gun story from the.
But you never told me your theory of consciousness.
Okay, so consciousness, it's still not understood. Of like.
Yeah, it can't be explained.
Yeah, words.
Nobody's ever explained it.
Words are going to have a very difficult time doing it. I agree. We all experience it.
It's a precondition of consciousness is a precondition of being unable to explain consciousness.
Huh.
Because if you weren't conscious, you wouldn't even try.
Right. But you can see that other animals are conscious.
They are conscious, yeah.
And as the complexity of the animal goes up, the consciousness expands.
We don't know really how much consciousness a nematode has. Maybe one nematode has a very small consciousness, but all nematodes.
Nope, that's all right.
Sorry.
No worries.
Maybe they're running the entire universe as a group.
Yeah.
But we have no way of knowing, is my point. We don't know what the consciousness of anything is. All we know is what's inside of in between
individuals.
our ears.
Right.
That's all we know.
So it's impossible to explain, but we all know it exists.
Right. Yes. I assume that, like me, you are a conscious being.
Yeah,
and not simply a projection of my consciousness.
It's incomplete. Most people don't think it. They think that their reality is the 100% true reality.
Right.
Right? But that's not true. And the more aware you are, the closer you can get to that, never achieving it. Like, for instance, some people believe the Earth is flat.
Yes, for some strange reason.
Yes. It's not.
Yeah.
So, like, a nematode doesn't know that there's even an Earth. Right?
Right.
Okay.
As far as we know.
Yeah, I mean, if they are networked together, it's networked in a way that's like, it seems like it would be detectable, because like you could tell by analyzing a brain that there's communication happening. So the nematodes go to the same place that we go. I don't believe in heaven or hell. I believe that after we die and the nematode dies, and
we go back into the Negredo and we dissolve.
I don't believe that.
No.
No, I don't. I mean,
our bodies do.
Oh, absolutely. I want to create a new religion that, like, that is the goal. And it's the collective conscious, and we all know the experience of every living being that's existed before that was conscious. So
interesting.
this is
Okay.
why it's important to eat like non-tortured meat. Like I'm not a vegetarian, but I don't want to eat tortured meat.
Right. Yeah.
And it's more important to be give more rights to animals as they gain in consciousness, because like a nematode or a stem cell, they're both living things. But I have no problem killing a nematode. I don't feel it's close to a plant. I mean,
Right.
they're really good with plants, but
Indigenous people in the Northwest believed that the salmon are sacred beings that when they go through their mating journey, they give themselves to people to eat. They don't. It's not just like, we're going to go kill some salmon now because like we can. It's more like, no, the salmon came and said, here, eat me, eat me, eat me. And so when you talk about the rights, remember that rights aren't something that a power gives to something powerless. Rights are something that has to do with respect, right? It's respecting the autonomy of the other, whatever it is, whether it's a figure in a dream or a nematode or whatever. And that respect also takes into consideration that consciousness is in everything.
well, the animals, I believe.
Animals, yes.
Yeah, I don't believe that the rocks roll uphill.
Yeah.
Which was
Well, let's put it this way. I have never met a rock that I had a conversation with.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't think that rocks, as a rule, a little piece of mineral is going to have, volition to do the things that it wants. But rocks are part of the planet, and the planet, I believe, is conscious.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I mean, I believe that the planet is consciousness in as far as like through us, through the other animals.
It could, that for sure.
Yeah.
But it's also very possible, for all we know, that the highest form of consciousness is the planet, not us.
It seems a little far-fetched to me.
Well, if you're talking about a collective consciousness, right? Well, what else would that be but the consciousness of the planet?
Oh, I don't.
I mean, we're part of it, right?
We emerged from it. A lot of happenstance, a lot of luck, and an enormous amount of evolution to get to us. But I just let's use Venus for instance. Like, I can't see Venus as being conscious.
But not being a planet, I don't have the ability to reality test a theory about the consciousness of planets because I can't have a conversation with the planet because I'm not a planet.
Yeah.
Right? So if, for example, human beings and other living things on this planet are analogous to the living cells and microbes in our body, then those living cells and microbes in our body are alive, and they may even operate independently, but they don't have they're not aware of my consciousness because they're too much inside of it.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't have they can't suddenly become a person and then have a conversation.
Well, there's just a big difference between life and non-life.
Planetary living system.
Is it part of the planetary living system? Yeah, I mean, everything on the Earth is part of the planetary living system.
Right.
But I believe that consciousness is emergent from a nervous system, from networks.
Yes, I have a different take on it. I don't think that.
Well, there's a gray area between nematodes and human beings, right? Like,
well,
yeah.
But just to finish my thought, I don't believe that the human brain produces consciousness. I believe that consciousness uses the human brain to focus itself into a single subjective node, and that those subjective nodes are all over the place. And I don't think I have enough information to be able to determine which things outside of my ken are conscious or not. I can only really communicate effectively with other human beings who speak the same language as me, much less, people much less other animals, much less an entire planet. So I actually don't have the ability to reality test whether or not a planet is conscious, or whether or not a nematode is conscious, because I don't have a means of testing that. I know that I'm conscious, and I know that I'm living on an object that operates as a living thing.
The vast majority of it isn't. It's a super thin layer on the very outside of Earth.
Okay.
The 99.9% of Earth is inert, not conscious, not like. And the reason,
99.9% of me is water.
yeah, you're a lot of water. And if you really
and air, empty air.
It's not air. Air is stuff. It's void.
It's molecules. Yeah, empty space.
Void.
Shall
Yeah.
we say?
If you go into the physics, yes.
Yes.
Most of it, in the atoms aren't even. They don't even touch each other.
I actually think that
you're not even solid.
It's that consciousness it operates inside of a fractal reality where scale is completely irrelevant. So that if you're on the planetary scale,
I know those words. It's just
yes. If you're on the planetary scale, you have planetary scale consciousness. If you're on a human scale, you have human scale consciousness. If you're on atomic scale, what does that mean?
Well, I did this tattoo whenever I was like 13, a dot in a circle,
Ooh.
and then I got it later at
There you
in Key West, and it was when I was in Catholic grade school, and I was studying the very small and the very large, and I was like, they're both like atoms were depicted as having a nucleus and an electron shell, and then I looked at the solar system, and it has they all have suns at the center, and then like shells around it, and I was like, but
it's a very simple mandala. Is what it is. When Jung was in the military service when he was young, he started drawing mandalas, and it was just little sketches, and every day he would draw one or two little sketch of a circular form, and it was something he felt compelled to do. It was his way of maintaining his sense of identity when he was in a situation that was alien to him. He wasn't really a soldier. He was performing his military duties, but it took him out of the context of his own life, his work, his relationships, and so he drew mandalas, and that was when he started to realize that the mandala was a central shape of consciousness. It's like an image of that concentrated point of subjective reality that we call consciousness, and every culture has produced mandala forms, and when people who are having psychological issues are moving toward healing, they will draw mandalas spontaneously. So you're in good company.
oh.
You're in good company. It's a symbol of wholeness, and wholeness means not that we can ever make everything that's unconscious conscious, but that we can operate. So here's an image for you. This is what Jung thought the psyche was like metaphorically. He pictured it, and again, this is a physical representation of something that's not physical, so it's just a metaphor. Pictured it as a sphere, and the sphere is largely dark. And at the center of the sphere is a nucleus. And on the surface of the sphere is an area that's lighted. It's not lighted in a sharp, like circular shape like this, but it's like it's light in the middle and then gradually fading away on the surface. That lighted area on the surface of the sphere is ego consciousness. It's conscious, the conscious part of us. It's whatever it is in that whole totality of the sphere, which is conscious right now. And at any given moment, you are conscious of some things and unconscious of a lot of other things, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that your brain isn't utilizing them or working with them. Your right brain is constantly crunching vast amounts of data that you will never be fully conscious of, if at all, right? And it's data about your body, it's data about your surroundings. It's data about maybe a field of consciousness that connects you with other living things that you can never be fully aware of, but which gives you information that we can't really define. We pick up people's body language and we unconsciously respond to it. So there's most of what happens in our organism happens unconsciously, right? So therefore, consciousness is simply it's like if your life is a movie, a very long movie, your consciousness is the frame of the movie you're on right now. And that doesn't mean that the other parts of the movie aren't real or that they'll never be conscious. But it's also a movie that might be, a million years long, and you're only going to play, 20 minutes of it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So consciousness and the unconscious have that kind of relationship. It's the relationship literally between the everything and what we know right now. And then there's a piece of the everything, which is an individual psyche, and then there's the collective psyche, which is everything that could potentially come into consciousness. And then beyond that is the pleroma, and the pleroma is the realm of possibilities that will never become conscious. So there's a lot of layers there. So I think we have a tendency to fetishize consciousness as if it were something absolute. But it's literally just a circumstance. It's almost an accident of perspective and conditions. And so therefore, I'm on this train with you, and I'm conscious, and I'm having a conversation with you, so I'm conscious of you and the expressions on your face. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's going on at the other end of the car. I have a window that's moving past this, landscape. Occasionally I become conscious of some tiny little piece of the landscape, but there's a part of me that sees everything that's around me. I have peripheral vision that's picking up all this stuff. I have peripheral vision that's tracking what somebody's doing at the other end of the car. And if it became a threat, I would potentially become conscious of it. Or maybe I wouldn't, and then I'd be screwed. But there's a huge scope.
We're wired for false positives, so
right.
don't worry.
Exactly. We're very good. Exactly. We're wired for false positives, and that's why we believe in conspiracy theories, because sometimes there are conspiracies.
It certainly seems like it.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So consciousness. It isn't an absolute, and Jung believed that when something from the unconscious has enough energy to move into consciousness, that something else will fall into unconsciousness, because there's only a finite amount that we can be conscious of at any given point. So the real question isn't, are we going to increase our consciousness? It's actually, how are we going to be able to have a little bit more agency in what it is that we're conscious of, and how are we going to have more meaning in what it is that we're conscious of. Because the real problem we have in our society right now is that what we're conscious of has been commoditized to where attention is what, the people out there with a lot of money are spending a lot of money to get our attention all the time. And they want to direct our consciousness in specific directions that are going to benefit them. It's like that show you were telling me about, where they put on the glasses and they see all the ads, right? But they're doing it subliminally, they're doing it in all kinds of, manipulative ways. So the real question is, can we free our consciousness from the bonds of a system that is actually exploiting us and manipulating us at all times? And what does it look like for our consciousness to be free and to be more authentically connected to that collective area of unconsciousness where we're all connected? Because when we do that, we have the free will of being authentic, of our authentic connection to our living organism and the macroorganism of our species, our biome, our planet, and so on. Whereas what they've done is they've created this illusion of individualism, which essentially essentially allows them to separate us from all the other living things and people, and puts us in a little box where we can then be tormented and gone and driven insane while they literally profit off of our misery. And we've definitely gotten to that point, you know. And so as your was it your stepnephew who's like, you know,
AI psychosis.
AI psychosis, you know. So this is the direction that our society is headed. So in your theory of consciousness, in your concept of a new religion, I just want to point out that consciousness is very important, and yes, I think it is interconnected, just the same way that the roots of all the trees are interconnected with the mycelium layer, and they all feed and share with each other. That's a living system, right?
Maybe consciousness is the wrong word. Maybe identity fits it more. Like, who are you? Like, so the point being is, like, we have this idea, and people with personality disorder are definitely cluster B are screwed of like who they are, because who they are isn't who they are. Like it's a fantasy of, like, you know, of who they are. I believe after we die, we join a collective consciousness, a collective identity, or I don't know. I'm not even opposed to saying we become God. Like maybe God is a better word, but like it's so loaded because God is, and all of the other religions are separate from us that I know of. Like, we aren't God. God is separate. God made us. We are down here. God is up here.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, there's no up there here. Like, all of us.
Have you ever read Spinoza?
No, I haven't.
Philosopher Spinoza.
I'm terribly unread, but I do have this. I know that I experienced it. That I went through every living being's life from start to finish. Like,
wow.
A human being's brain can't hold that, but
No.
But like, time didn't exist, you know.
Right. Right.
Time only exists, you know. So
yes.
That was the first clue to me, first-hand experience.
And how long ago did this happen?
Oh, that was in 1992, 91.
Oh, so you had a prior experience of the divine from that trip, but then you were still an atheist?
Oh, then I didn't even know. I just knew that I wasn't Catholic.
Right.
Yeah, I was still open to, like, possibilities. I was just like, when I was 13, I was an altar boy. I started asking questions, and I was like, no, that's not true. That's not true. They kept this, and I was like, all the other religions have these magic books. Why is our magic book better than their magic books? And they're like, it just is. And I'm like, well, that's just not a legitimate answer.
Yeah.
This is just like,
it's a very self-referential.
Tell me why.
That is the nature of religion, right? It's faith. It's a matter of faith, but it's also a matter of faith, you know, to say, well, we're part of a living organism, and that's actually something that can be reality tested and has been researched.
It doesn't require faith. This, what I'm talking about, does require faith, because there will be no proof. Like, you have to die to experience it.
And that's what I was going to say with your consciousness theory. I agree with you, but I don't think you have to die. I don't think you have to die to be part of it.
Oh.
I think we're already part of it.
Yeah. Well,
we've been trained not to be conscious of it.
I think that we can. I think to be part of it, you have your life has to end.
You don't think that it can happen if you're in a body?
Yeah, I mean, with the aid and some good setting, I think you can get a taste of it. But I'm not there anymore.
What about a guru who spends their whole life meditating and expands their consciousness into the whole universe and connects through a discipline?
So here's the issue: like, you're not complete until the end, right? And
okay, I see what you're saying. So you're saying not so much that it's about whether or not you're embodied, but that when your story is done, then it gets entered into the database of consciousness, of collective consciousness, as an identity that happens.
Yeah, you cease being an individual. We are individuals, and we're all connected. I'm not denying that. I'm not. The mycelia, yes, it's amazing. All of that is amazing, but we are individuals, your start was not the same as my start. Your end, unless even if the train crashes, our ends will be
Slightly different.
Yeah,
Probably.
same cause.
I'll be going
Different. Yeah.
and you'll go take me.
I thought this was going to happen on a motorcycle. A train. I love trains. Oh.
Why could you do this to me?
But so yes, we cease being ourselves and we join. We all. So God really isn't complete. I don't think, because it keeps getting added to.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And honestly, I do believe that incarnation in itself is a kind of active participation in the creation of reality. You know, I don't see this the world of the spirit or consciousness or collective consciousness or God or whatever it might be. I don't see it as separate from the embodied world. What I see is that being in a body is a way of concentrating and focusing consciousness into a specific point, and that is what creates the fabric of the consciousness field. And so we have to live time in a linear fashion in order to take all the steps, in order to run the program, right? And so each one of us, coming into a body, nematode or planet or person or whatever it is, at whatever
Emerging.
scale, is essentially running the consciousness program by having a point of view, by having a subjective point of view in which to experience time. But that there's a greater reality beyond that, and you know that. So in a sense, it is like the Matrix. We're literally fueling the consciousness field with the sacrificial act of our living and dying, and yet something bigger is being created at the same time. And when I was in high school, I had a spirit guide. It was a figure that I met in a dream, and that I would consult about these big questions. His name was David, and he was very cute, but sort of fatherly, you know, perfect for a 15-year-old. And he would tell me things that like always ended up being something that, you know, physicists discovered later, or was part of like the theories of, you know, science. But I didn't know anything about that stuff then. I just was listening to my spirit guide, and he told me that time is like a river. If you're or like you could also say like a train on a track. Like if you're on the train, then you're going down the tracks, you know, one tie at a time, right? But if you're not on the train, you can go and come back. If you're on the river, if you're flowing with the river, you're going in one direction. But once you're outside of that embodied existence, then you can move anywhere in the landscape. You can go to any part of the river that you want. At the same time, you never step in the same river twice, right? The river, each moment and each point that river is flowing is unique, is actually creating that flow of water, which is feeding the whole thing. And so, you know, from those simple ideas of time being like a river, that, you know, when you're outside of the body, you can move back and forth throughout the landscape. You know,
move is interesting because move involves time.
Well, it does if you're in a body, but
move.
Okay, so let me complete the metaphor. So, okay, so dimensionally, we start out with point, and then we go to line, and then we go to plane, and then we go to cube, and then we go to time.
Hypercube, or time.
Time, sure. Right? Because we live in three-dimensional worlds, so each point in our three-dimensional world is also moving through time in a linear fashion. And then you get to the other dimensions, and, you know, mathematicians and physicists say, you know, there's multiple dimensions. Some say 8, some say 12, you know. But the point is it keeps expanding out. So if it keeps expanding out, then consciousness exists inside of this expansive reality which goes beyond time. So when I say that it's like a river, I'm simplifying something which is actually much more multidimensional. So that makes it possible for us to visualize it because we exist in a three-dimensional world, which we experience in the fourth dimension. But if we existed in a fifth dimensional world and experienced it at the sixth dimension, then that would give us more power over our ability to comprehend what's under us. The same way that we can move around in a three-dimensional landscape, but it takes time. You know, we're stuck going one direction in that time mode, right? The linear time mode. If we go outside of linear time mode, then we can move around in time the same way that we can right now move around in space. Do you get my drift?
It's a bit confusing because moving around in time kind of violates, cause and effect.
Right, and that's where we get to synchronicities.
Yeah. Well, I was still trying to understand, like, what the fuck is this, right? Like, why? Still,
Yes.
if there's agency behind it. Now, my theory, or my pet theory, I'll start saying is, after we die, we all join a collective collective consciousness, and we see the experience of every conscious being before us. Like, once I die, I will know my life. Like, I will meet myself through you, right? I will know your birth. I will know your life. I will know your death. We all become. I like to call it, like, we all lose our clothes. We all become naked, and that's why it's really important to be good to other people. If that's what you. Nobody wants to be. I think truly to cause harm to another person. Like, that's why I think that
Most people don't unless they're sadistic.
and they don't. Sadistic people, that's a trait of extreme personality disorder.
Right.
And they're trying to stop a pain that's in them, and hurting other people helps it.
They actually get pleasure out of it.
Yes, which is they're sick.
Yeah.
So
It is a sickness. for
yeah,
sure.
so that's why I was like, in one of my videos, I was like, we should feel pity for Hitler, even though he did these atrocities, because he's part of this collective consciousness, and he now knows what his actions and choices caused to so many people, and he caused so much pain.
Because when he dies, he becomes part of that collective,
Yeah.
and then he has to gain a kind of
That's all you are.
self-knowledge.
All we are is our choices,
Right.
right? That's it.
Yeah.
We're renting this, and did positive things and brought joy and love into the world. You get to fully experience, and from your decisions, from your choices.
Yeah.
And there's a burden of elevating your consciousness. The more you know, the more kind of responsibility you have, the less ignorance can be justified. Like, I look at it like Hitler had a horrible childhood. He had to have had a horrible childhood.
Oh, he did. He was already abused by his father.
And I'm guessing probably has a micro penis like his.
It's interesting what you're describing with, like, having compassion for Hitler, because he is the sum of what he did, what the choices he made.
Yeah.
What you're actually describing is something that people experience in near-death experiences, where there's often like a tunnel or the up into space. Jung had one. It was very similar, where when you reach a point where you're separated from your body, the person will experience sudden clarity about their entire life. They will see their whole life spread out before them. And they will suddenly realize just how stupid they are. Every stupid, wrong, like, cruel thing they did, and maybe without even knowing it, they'll see that sum total of all their choices, and then they move beyond that. It's like, you lived, you did the things, you were part of it, you messed up, you did something good, whatever. And then when people come back from that, they come back completely changed.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, listen up.
I really think that trip I took whenever I was in high school was similar to like a near-death experience.
Yes.
It was like
yes. And a lot of people have reported the same thing. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
There's a comedian, Bill Hicks. He talks about
Right.
we're on a roller coaster going up and down, and you realize that this is all a dream, and we're all. So I don't even claim that I think it's inevitable that like if we survive long enough that we all come to this conclusion that is if we were survived. So where do these synchronicities come from? Okay, this is definitely a pet theory. It's not hard copied into the Cult of Khnum yet, but like on my hike, I tried to do the Kohanna Trail last year and I failed.
Yes.
I only got 3 days. I had to come back and I did some, and I was like doing videos and I mentioned it because like I'm not embarrassed, I don't care, and like I found this piece of trash and I saw this piece of trash and I normally pick up, not normally, I mean I leave no trace, but like I'm not responsible for other people's trash. I looked at it, I walked a mile and a half and then I was like, I turned around and I walked back with that little piece of trash because it was something that Gusher got, and it was like, this is a joke from Jesus. I know. I feel like Jesus put that piece of trash there, and I went back and then I did the video. It's on YouTube, and then as I was doing the video, the piece of trash flew away, and I was like, easy come, easy go, I guess. And I felt horrible because I had just littered. It went to the wrapper went into a place that I couldn't access. It was a dam.
Right. Yeah.
So like from the litter that I ignored, that I went back because it was like, this is my souvenir, and then I did the video, and then it flew away, and I'm like,
danged if you do and danged if you don't.
but I still had the video, so even though I didn't have the piece of trash souvenir that was an awesome joke from Jesus, so yeah, so the people that thought that they were doing good, let's say Hitler actually, well, he did. He believed that he was creating a better world,
Right.
in his mind.
In his mind.
And his what do you call it? The thing.
Ego consciousness.
Ego consciousness. Yeah. His ego consciousness was like, I'm saving the planet. I'm making people better. I'm going to make a perfect world. It's going to be beautiful. We're all going to have these uniforms and
He was very polite to his cook.
I didn't know that. How about that? I worked with Elon Musk's personal cook at SpaceX. I worked at a grocery store. I had all these weird jobs. I was a culinary graduate. He was a culinary graduate, and he's like, "Fuck this job," and he just wants to stack cans, which is ironically, I looked at autism in the Wikipedia. That's the first image is like a kid stacking cans, and I was like, "This makes sense." I got pushed out from that job because I was like, you're autistic, and they're like, yeah, I got a diagnosis. Yeah, it's a magnet. Because this is soothing for some reason, just stacking and organizing. It's like trains are too.
Yeah.
It just suits the I heard a great description of a typical and an atypical brain. Typical is an empathic, naturally empathic. You understand things through people, and an autistic is a systemizer. So once I started studying psychology 7 years ago, when I found out I had, or 9 years ago, when I found out I had autism, it opened my eyes to like understanding people,
Yeah.
Because I was like, nobody makes fucking any sense at all. Like, how the fuck is it happening?
And again, it could very well be a right lateralization difference.
It's unknown. The mirror neurons, I heard enlarged amygdala that large people have, autistic people have a enlarged amygdala, and I don't doubt that there is some right-left brain difference.
Right, because the organizational thing is the left brain thing.
Left brain.
And empathy is the right brain.
Left brain is language? No. It is language. Well, that's puzzling. Well, autistic people obviously can talk.
Yes, yes. And people who are non-autistic can also talk. I mean, a lateralization problem doesn't mean that one side of your brain is dead. And even if it did, probably if you were, able to survive it, it was because the other side, the other parts of your brain took over those tasks. Our brains are much more plastic than they used to think.
Yeah.
Somebody can have severe brain damage and still recover, and like regrow tissue, reassign tasks to different tissue, and that's why the study of the brain is so complicated. Because even when they can track neural activity in a brain, and they can say, well, this is typical of these various different brains, it doesn't explain what happens in atypical brains, and it doesn't explain what happens in brains that are damaged, because actually each brain is unique, and it's a living organism that has to respond to unique circumstances. So, it's a very young field, neuroscience, and it's still changing and growing. But we do know from, whoever they are, know from studying, a variety of different situations, they can have a sense of, in a typical person, because again, some left-handed people, their left brain lateralization is similar to right-handed people. In some left-handed people, it's switched. So there's a lot of variations going on, and we've barely begun to scratch the surface of describing the typical brain, or even understanding what's typical. But we do have some sense that, and this doesn't just rely on neuroscience, but it goes back to centuries of, religious and philosophical ideas about the two halves of ourselves, the Apollonian and the Dionysian, the idea that there's two different personalities that we could access to do different kinds of things. What does it mean when you're in your creative space versus when you're doing business? These are very different ways of thinking. How do you act when you're in love versus when you're trying to, win a contest? We're so much more diverse within ourselves than we give ourselves credit for. And so, there's a lot there that remains to be understood, is all I'm saying.
I think people fear that a lot.
Some people do.
They don't want to, like, my mom several times is like, you're never going to change my mind, no matter how, and I'm like, she's set herself up not to be plastic. It's like she resists being open-minded.
Right, right. Because her a trauma response that may not be even related to trauma she personally experienced. It may be simply a cultural trauma response that was solidified in an era of great trauma, and then became an intergenerational trauma response that was passed on through powerful epigenetic forces. The fact is that
her mom didn't teach her how to clean or do anything because she didn't want to lose power in the house. It was just, and my grandmother, she knew every car, make and model that would pass. It was like, oh, you're here, you're here.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Always concerned with her appearance, and
yes, control. That's left brain. So. Anyway, was there more to your theory?
So
keep going.
These synchronicities, because it feels like some of them have pointed me towards death, and some of them have pointed me towards
Okay, so count your points. So
I don't want to
clear space is lurching.
I mean, it doesn't get much more egotistical than saying I want to create a world-dominating religion. But that's what I want to do, and
So what we're really talking about is an extreme splitting between nihilism and ultimate power.
Well,
That's
I
what
know.
we're talking
Yeah,
about.
right, space.
Yeah, I guess.
So
So how many
so
couples? 13, 18?
here's my definition of sanity.
Okay, so then you're winning.
You have both.
Are you a good
And you're balancing them.
Yeah.
That's sanity, right? Because if you go toward the death one, you're suicidal. If you go toward the world-dominating religion one, you're a megalomaniac.
That's all right.
But
You should
I'll
see
tell you,
mine. So
there's
inside
somebody
out.
drew a diagram for me once, and I'll show it to you if I can figure out how. Pen, paper, okay. All right. This is one of my favorite pictures of all time.
I used to be able to do that too, but
It's a Venn diagram.
Yes.
shuffle like just, you should have seen they all. Okay, 13? Yes. Yeah, I like that too. Good. That's what I'm gonna do. Yeah.
Oh, there's one right here.
Called the dealer square?
There. Well, I just call it a square because it's and then
Yeah.
you just pass it out.
Yeah, that's true. They're all even. I don't have to worry about that. So you said you're 12. So did you just finish this trick or going to you finished it?
Okay. So this is a diagram for artists to deal with the extremes of the artistic temperament.
Then, yeah. That's great.
And essentially, you could say, I have art in the middle here. So on the one side is crippling self-doubt.
Yes.
On the other side, extreme inflation and megalomania. And where the two converge is art.
Okay.
So, but you could just as easily say consciousness, or,
Same school
or sanity, or any number of, you could, whatever you put in there, it doesn't really matter because this is the self. This is where we're holding the tension of the opposites. As human beings, we have the special condition that we assume other animals don't have. We can't prove that, but we assume other animals don't have based on their behavior, which is that we are alive and we know we're going to die. And we're aware of our mortality at all times, which drives a sort of crazed urgency on the one hand, and on the other hand, we have this nihilistic tendency, right? So, one of the things that we do later in our lives is we have to come to terms with the part of ourself which is fascinated by death. We have to come to a peace with that. If you use a religion for that, then you're simply setting up a set of like pre-ordered, off the rack symbols of comfort so that you don't have to think about it. But if you really come to grips with it, you're actually coming to grips with exactly what you were saying, which is when you die, you're just the sum of all those decisions that you made.
I mean, somebody has
You're just the sum of everything that you chose to do, and you do it blind because you don't know what the consequences are going to be. You have to do it. You have to. The only guide you have is, your faith that if you have good intentions, maybe it'll work out.
No, good intentions are not enough.
Sure,
I would say 60 million people that voted for Trump had good intentions.
Most of them did,
Yeah.
although a lot of them just were doing it for the money, for the economic benefits, and they actually didn't like a lot of the things he was doing, but they're like, well, it's my self-interest to do this.
Yeah. If you've played the stock market, whenever he would do that, you.
Or if you just believe the propaganda that he's going to make eggs cheaper, which turned out to be completely ridiculous.
And gas.
Yeah.
And then I see the hypocrisy on the liberal side where they're like, oh, this is terrible. Gas is so expensive. I'm like, gas should be $20 a gallon right fucking now.
Right.
So I'm really sorry, but have you taken a look at the climate?
Yeah.
You shouldn't be complaining that gas is expensive. You should cheer it because then people will stop driving trucks and people will start driving.
Which is, this is the silver lining of all this insane stuff that's happening right now, is it's literally driving people away from fossil fuels, and thank goodness.
Yeah.
So nothing exists as an absolute value of good or bad. But that's part of the human condition, isn't it?
Uh,
You know,
well,
and
I
it's
think-
also part of nature.
I think the vast majority of things are neither good nor bad. Like, you know, I mean, it's so many things are just opinion of how you feel about it, and I mean, even with suffering and trauma, looking back at my childhood, there was like a lot of horrible things, a lot of good things, but like I wouldn't be the person I am now. I certainly wouldn't know as a culinary graduate and a failed artist, anything about psychology.
Have you failed to make art?
So impressive.
When I say failed artist, I mean,
This is broken.
art. I keep saying this, it sounds megalomaniac, but I've been not trying to be an artist. I'm trying to get a name, trying to get recognition, and I'm still doing it, and with no credentials, and that's like impossible and like intellectual
It is
work.
an impossible
It
task,
seems.
and some people do it anyway.
Well, that's what that's what I'm hoping, because I don't have the money or the time to go to school, and.
And going to
But my
school
life,
isn't the
but-
solution either.
but my life experience is what I'm saying is like I don't think I'd be capable of understanding the psychology of the personality disorder or autism without knowing it from the inside, and from seeing it firsthand from my father and my stepfather growing up. I mean, what would be interesting, what I need to learn more about is like how like non-traumatized like typical people function.
Well, and the good news, as I mentioned before, is that there's actually people who know how to help to bring things into more balance, know how to help people to like locate the psychologically, emotionally, the spot at which things got shut off, and to not instantaneously, no magic bullets, but to change those thought patterns and behaviors to reactivate the developmental processes that got interrupted. And you talked about it yourself. You are still tempted to slam on the brakes when somebody's tailgating.
Yeah, well,
but you also are aware that if you do it, you'll feel guilty because you might have put some innocent person into danger. So you're like, I know this is fun, but it's also
in the moment.
In the moment,
Yeah.
but in the bigger picture, I also recognize that it's a trap for me to be addicted to that rush.
Oh, the drug,
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. So I'm gonna just say no to the drug because, I actually I am capable of behaving in a sane way, and I choose that.
Yeah.
I choose to be sane. I choose to hold the tension between my rage and desire for revenge and my.
Well, I love
the whole
using
thing.
Hitler as an example because few people in history have done more heinous things than him. Now,
Stalin would be one.
I'm sure there's many. But, well, he, there's more. But he was timed just right with the Industrial Revolution.
He was
Like,
the wrong guy at the wrong time.
Yeah. Anyway, so we have incomplete knowledge of ourselves and things around us. So when Hitler died, maybe we don't have to feel so bad for him because maybe he was traumatized so much that he didn't have the freedom to choose any other way. There's a certain amount but you have to be, it's extreme. It's like, I try to explain it as like being upset that a person that was born with one arm can't clap. You're asking him to clap and you're like, everyone's clapping, this is a great thing, you need to show respect and clap, and he doesn't have the other hand. That's why I think it's almost more of a responsibility to the people that would be capable of like with my mother. I just feel like, is she really that damaged from childhood that she can't rise above and see that she should just not vote? She doesn't have to vote for Kamala, but like you don't have to vote for Trump either. You can just, there's so these synchronicities. I feel like the agency comes from this collective unconscious. The
Collective consciousness.
conscious, yeah. I gotta update my terms, but thank you. Collective conscience, and I think that there's excluding people like, let's say, Hitler, who was so damaged, and society, and he could never like have real find love or that he was just like a wounded animal, fighting back, and that we don't know the spectrum of the breadth of our choice. We think we have a choice, but the person that was traumatized, like Jeffrey Dahmer eating people, he was compensating, right?
And don't forget too, unlike Jeffrey Dahmer, who was working on his own, Hitler was participating in it, and he was actually an epiphenomenon of a collective process. So the reason why there was a Hitler was because there was people for whom what Hitler said and did, and how the book he wrote and everything were like, yes, that's what I've been thinking. So he wasn't just operating alone.
Yeah.
He wasn't operating as a sole agent.
Yeah.
He was gathering into himself the shadow of a collective process and giving it voice in a way that ignited people's passions and ignited people's imagination.
We've kind of done this with giving corporations personhood. It's like, well, it should be required that a person dies. So, like, if you give personhood to a corporation, it should have an expiration.
I know, because there's no limit to them. Yeah.
So they should not have personhood.
They should definitely. I don't believe that corporations should be people. I think that's an insane idea.
Yeah,
because they're not, and they don't have, as you say, they don't have an expiration date, and they also they don't have a conscience.
No. Right. Yeah.
They don't have human rights.
Right. Conscience. The words are too close.
Yeah.
Their mission is just money, profit, shareholders.
Yeah. It's like you're giving a robot human rights.
Right.
But especially if it's a robot that's designed to just make money by stealing it from everyone.
Yeah.
That giving rights to that robot is a very self-destructive act. And the only people who would want to make corporations people are extremely wealthy people who don't want to be accountable for their crimes. That's the only reason why you would do that.
Yeah. The question is why like 290 million fucking Americans don't see it, and they keep voting against their interests. And, I mean, my argument is there's like this binary.
Because they use the religion argument. They use religion. Yeah, my husband's parents are ethnically Jewish. They were they both passed away. They were atheists, and the reason was because they lived through Hitler, and they were persuaded that religion is a great evil, that it just causes people to believe things that aren't true and to be able to be manipulated to do horrendous, heinous things. And they thought religion is just terrible. It should not exist. The more energy we put into religions, the more we deceive ourselves. I'm not religious, but I also am not a rationalist in the same way that they were. Mm-hmm. I believe in the something great, something beyond, something greater. Mm-hmm. But I just think that it would be incumbent on us, if we want to survive as a species, to do what the founding fathers, one of the really best things they did was to say it's up to each person's to conscience.
You mean separation of church and state?
Separation of church and state, yes.
I think it's important too, even though I'm trying to create a world. I do.
But really, it's up to each person to have their own relationship with God, or what they conceive the divine to be. Yeah. But I would love to see a more emphasis on a meaningful relationship with the living world as a divinity. Because I think that if we saw it that way, then we could begin to take responsibility for the consequences of the way that our economics and our, fetishization of progress and material wealth is damaging the planet, we're literally the parasite killing the host at this point,
Uh-huh.
and that's really stupid.
Yeah.
It's really not smart.
Yeah, I mean that's why I don't have kids. I was like, part of the reason.
Yeah.
Uh,
But so your world dominating religion
right.
is obviously a something that many of us have fantasized about because we would like to be able to wave a magic wand and transform consciousness through like the perfect idea. You know, I admit I have had this fantasy myself, and I've always been like, "Pah," you know, because it's like it's inflated and it's impossible to execute, and even if I did, I would be miserable because who wants to run a religion? That sounds really boring, and also incredibly annoying, and I prefer to have, you know, my solitude. I would much prefer my solitude to having to deal with people at that level. That just sounds awful to me.
Yeah.
So really, you know, if you want to transform consciousness, if you want to transform belief systems, then, you know, what do you do? You know, and for me, the answer was to learn more and to try and become better, clearer in my mind of what I believe, and to find a sense of my own authenticity. And the way that I did that was through studying my dreams, because dreams, from a psychological standpoint, are objective data. They're objective data because they come from the unconscious in an unfiltered or relatively unfiltered way. I mean, we do filter them into consciousness, you know, so there's things that happen and changes that happen when you bring it into your consciousness and when you write it down or record it in some way. But nonetheless, the images from those dreams are raw data that can tell us about what's going on
Do you remember
inside
your
of
dreams
us.
like most time?
I've been through periods where I had almost every night 2 or 3 rich, vivid dreams that I then recorded. After doing that for a certain number of years, the dream activity kind of died back a little bit, you know, because I think there's a process where when you take the lid off the unconscious and you let, you know, by recording, you're giving attention to the unconscious images, and when you give attention to them, then they start crowding in like, you know, like critters at the zoo that want a peanut or something, like me. And but you know, once you've given out all the peanuts, then you know there's still dreams, but they're not. The activity dies down, and a lot of people have seen this happen in their dream work. But I still remember dreams, and I still record the ones that I remember. Except I actually had one that I forgot to record. I dreamed a couple of the stones fell out of my new wedding ring that my husband bought me after I lost my wedding ring. He got me this custom ring. I dreamed a couple of the stones fell out, which is interesting because I have had a dream about that before. When I was a kid, I had a Zuni Indian ring. It was a silver ring with 4 rectangular pieces of turquoise set into it. It was inset in the Zuni style, and I loved that ring. I loved it with all my heart. I wore it every single day. And one night I dreamed that there were 6 stones, and 2 of them fell out. And then a week or 2 later, I was in the bathroom washing my hands, and I noticed that one of the stones had fallen out of my ring, and it was in exactly the same circumstances as the dream in which I had dreamed of the stones falling out of my ring. So I freaked out. I started to cry. I had a panic attack because I had dreamed something bad happened, and then it happened. And that scared me so much.
I'm sure.
It was a very minor incident in my life. Of course, losing a stone from a ring is not a big tragedy, but to a child, it's an important object. And then around the same time, I had, again, these moccasins. So again, with the connection to Native Americans, I had these moccasins I loved, and I loved them because I had extraordinarily wide feet, and I couldn't fit into normal girl shoes. And so I could only really wear shoes that were, could accommodate my wide feet, and I had these moccasins that I would wear every day. And I was working on a painting. I was painting the windows of the front of the school because I had been recruited as the artist, to paint the holiday windows, and I was painting this holiday picture. And some drops of turquoise blue paint dripped onto my moccasin. And once again, I had dreamed it. And then it happened. And so there was the Native American connection, there was the color blue of turquoise blue, and then there was the damage to a precious thing. And then having dreamed about it and then having it come true, and I freaked out. Now I look back now, and I understand that as a child, I was upset about something because I didn't understand it. I didn't understand that you could have a dream and that it could come true. True. But the point being that the dream images are not operating inside of linear time either. They're really operating in a different space. And once we recognize that we're accessing the collective unconscious through a personal alleyway, right? So it's related to us personally, but it's also, there's synchronicities all the time related to dreams. So if we have access to that synchronistic layer of, the consciousness field, which is outside of time and outside of physical reality, that should tell us everything we need to know about the nature of our being. That that the idea that we're separated from that is the illusion. It's not the synchronicities that are the illusion. It's the idea that we're separated from everything that is an illusion. And once you understand that, then you recognize that, whatever we lose when we die from this world after doing our job, whether it's Hitler's job or, Gandhi's job or whatever it might be, whatever the sum total of our existence is as an embodied being, when we die, I think we just merge back into our greater self, which is God. And therefore, we have that divine spark in us, and we return to it. And from what I've read of people's near-death experiences, for the most part, that's experienced as a great relief and joy. And there's a moment of homecoming that happens when we die. And so that's helped me to come to grips with the anxieties that mortality brings, but I don't think it's through an illusion or through a symbolic placeholder that's a form of comfort. It's more through that authentic connection, which allows me to understand my existence as having a purpose, but also as being connected to the infinite in a unique way. And we really can't comprehend what it is that what meaning our life has, as you say, until we reach the end and it's completed. We can't comprehend what meaning our life has. But we can understand that it has inherent meaning. And we can understand that we have an inherent divine spark in us. And we can kind of surrender control, not of our responsibility, but of having to make something happen. If you kind of
There's only some things that you can make happen. There's most things you can't make happen. Some of the synchronicities that I had, I think I mentioned, pointed me more towards a death.
right.
Others pointed me towards more help and adapting, changing, and becoming a better person. You know,
Good. Yep.
there's a million that have happened that I've forgotten. Only the big, powerful ones have stayed with me.
Yeah.
But there are definitely periods where there's like zero, and then pop, 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 pop. Just the fact that you studied Carl Jung and I overheard you, and I made a false assumption on your book by the cover. I couldn't have think of a more interesting person to have a first trained inner dialectic with. So after we're dead, we rejoin, or we join the collective conscious.
So sort of merge into it in a way, or
yeah,
but stay distinct.
that's what it's made of.
Yeah, that's what it's made of.
But the very beginning of Earth, there was life, but it was barely conscious. It's there too. First organism that had a rudimentary nervous system was the first spark of this collective dead conscious. It's there. It's the after. I called them after identities. That was one of my first terms, after identities, because like I didn't want to say spirit or soul or ka. I just use after identities. Now, it really only gets interesting, I would say, whenever humans come on the scene, because I do think that we're special. It has complete knowledge of all of subjective experiences as a whole. Right? So it knows. I used to call it was the IT. Because I felt like calling it God is like defining it, and this seems arrogant to me. So it leaves this like, our brains can't describe outside of time. I can't imagine it. We're stuck in this world, and everything that we can describe or think of or experience is constrained within time and space. And
okay, well, philosophically, many people believe that imagination is actually the basis of consciousness. But go ahead.
I would say imagination is really important to complete the universe, because the universe should be capable of everything, and there are limits. There are rules that everything abides by, physics. And with our imagination, we can create things, and art, we can create things that break those rules. So they're broken within our imagination. They're not broken in reality, but they exist in our imagination.
Well, philosophically, there's the position also that perception is perception. Let me see how I can say this. When we perceive something, what we're actually doing is imaginally creating reality on the basis of inputs which are actually quite partial. It's like light bounces off something and it hits my eye. Sound waves are coming into my ear. My brain is constructing it into images that are meaningful through the imaginal organ of consciousness. Yeah,
we do synthesize we create these constructs of individuals that we know, and then we interact with them in our mind, but it's all imagination. But the photon that came into your eye is real.
The photon
the sound wave, the energy was
photon
there.
and the energy are a part of what's real.
Right. Yeah.
In that sense, but some philosophers would say that we don't know, and we can't know if it's real or not, because we're not actually experiencing a photon. We're experiencing an image that's happening inside of our brain.
Our retina is, and you should really watch the Matrix, because that's basically the foundation of the movie.
Okay.
Is that
done. I'm watching them. The first thing I do, and I get access to the high-speed internet.
I don't want statues built to me.
Good.
I don't want.
Is it really about you though? That's the
call
thing.
it a canoe. No,
Yeah.
it's about Kanu.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I like
exactly.
Kanu. It's not the cult of me.
Right,
It's the cult
exactly.
of Kanu that I made this mistake. I was disrespectful, and I didn't even look at it as a person anymore, because to me it wasn't a person. It was like, and I was so excited about making money. And I realized, it was wrong.
But
And-
what I wanted to say about that example of, like, the person.
Well, I'm sorry for using Hitler, because it's too extreme.
But
Yeah.
but it's an extreme that is illustrative of the human condition, and it's also illustrative of our cultural condition today. The people who are getting swept up in ICE raids and put into detention centers are suffering, and they have the opportunity to love and care for each other, even in the midst of a situation where they're being dehumanized. And so my point about that is that's actually the fight that everyone has, because we're all in a detention center. It's called embodied reality. We all suffer. And if we focus on avoiding suffering at the expense of our humanity, then there goes our humanity. If we embrace suffering not as I deserve it, or I don't deserve it, or or some kind of victimhood, but as a human condition, if we embrace that and go then beyond it to what can I do to ease the suffering of someone else, then we embrace our true humanity. So this goes beyond religion, goes beyond, although I think every religion has its saints, who understood this. And that's one of the reasons that keeps people attached to religion, because sometimes they confuse, saints with religious dogma, and religious dogma is irrelevant. But sainthood is that person who, in that circumstance, can yes,
Thank you.
can not only can, but automatically does resort to compassion. And that is the humanity that I think we were born to. I think that is our purpose. Our purpose is to be as human as we can in a dehumanizing society. And if we were still in our infancy state as a species, where we were completely enmeshed in our
Basic survival.
natural world, we're still enmeshed in basic survival today. What's going to a job, what's buying a car, what's going to the voting booth, it's all being enmeshed in basic survival, But if we were enmeshed in nature, then it would be survival within a system which embraces us and which is greater than us, and where we were not separated from it. That I could just keep coming back to this point, because I think that the problem is that trauma causes us to detach, and then once we're detached, then we feel nothing for that dead person. We feel nothing for that, abused animal. We feel nothing for that woman in trouble. We want to blame, we want to control, we want to judge, and we use that as a detachment mechanism, so that we don't have to deal with our own suffering, and so that we don't have to deal with our own powerlessness within a system that is so much more powerful than us. So again, and this is not how I felt when I was 19 years old. When I was 19 years old, I wanted to go out and change the world, and I wanted to be an individual, and I wanted to escape from those limiting circumstances. And fair enough, I was a kid, and I wanted to be me, But as I've gotten older and gone through moments of regret, crisis, failure, success, and watch the patterns of what worked and what didn't work, every single time, what worked wasn't trying to make something happen, having an agenda, trying to do something to get ahead. Every single time that something worked, it was a matter of saying yes to the universe, saying yes to empathy, saying yes to not thinking about myself, but so much as caring about others. And by caring for all, I do care for myself. By having that connection, I am connected to myself. And so that's the paradox of our humanity, is that it isn't a solo act. And Hitler was evil not because he was traumatized, but because he was split off from his humanity. And then his way of being split off, his ability to craft that into a mentality, provided a model for a split off culture to follow his lead in this split off way of dealing with it. We're gonna project our problems onto an out group, and then we're gonna punish them, and that we're gonna take everything that they own. We're going to essentially enrich ourselves on that basis, and we're gonna justify it with a moral argument that says, they're the problem, and we're going to create this fascist fantasy of our own perfection. There's not like a 20-minute section that you could cut out that sums it all up.
No.
Because what we were doing was a hermeneutic.
Hermeneutic.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what a hermeneutic is?
I do not know.
Hermeneutics, literally, it comes from Hermes.
Okay.
But hermeneutics
So the audio is still going, it looks like.
Interpretation.
Okay, we still got to go, as long as this is alive.
Okay. Hermeneutics is a way of interpreting reality by moving back and forth between the details and the big picture. Then we're back now to the from the left and right brain. So we move. You look at the part, and then you go back to the whole, and you recontextualize it, and then you go back to the part, and then you go back to the whole. And if you keep doing the circle, you get a hermeneutic spiral. And that hermeneutic spiral, it could do one of two things. It could move in toward the center to try and make a point, or it can move out from a center to try and gather in more information, more ideas. And I think we were doing more like a hermeneutic funhouse mirror.
I want to buy churches, I want to buy synagogues and mosques and convert them into temples of Khnum. It's about green burials.
Oh, okay. Oh, fun.
Because I worked for the funeral home. I also worked for a cemetery, a green cemetery, which wasn't green.
They were just selling them.
Well, they didn't use caskets or vaults, which is green. But they buried the body 4 feet under heavy clay soil, which causes the body to decompose anaerobically. So basically, it would be better to cremate yourself. It would produce less pollution, because carbon dioxide, even though it produces an enormous amount of carbon dioxide, burying yourself under 4 feet of clay soil turns you into methane, which is way worse of a greenhouse gas. So it's really bad. Anyway, there's a company in Washington that's doing.
I want to become a fart.
So there is a company already doing this green burials, which I wouldn't mind hooking up with. But I also
Human composting.
yeah, it is.
I've heard of that. Yep.
It's excellent.